It happened. It actually happened. For the first time ever on the worldwide server, Revue Starlight ReLIVE has a collaboration ongoing. This collaboration is with Hatsune Miku, and for the collaboration, along with a cool new event, we also get Tsuyuzaki Mahiru cast as the Hatsune Miku themed Mirai. Is she worth your gems? And if you see her in PvP, how should you respond? I'll answer those questions and more in this video on Mirai. Now, these stats are not up to date, so we're going to ignore them for now. But what I want to tell you is that her two notable stats are her HP, which is significantly high, and her special defense, which is pretty darn good as well. Her normal defense is questionable, not terrible, and her act power is actually very, very low relative to other girls that have been released that you may have been thinking I should pull for. If we're talking about, like, say, Zeus or Red Riding Hood, we're looking at girls who are reaching 2100 act power. Mirai will not even crack 1750. Now, she is Dream, so that does give some boost to her damage, no matter who she's attacking, unless it's other Dreams. But that also means her normal defense can be exploited pretty easily. She does get some benefit from being mid-row, so there is that. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Oh, her agility, last of all, is also pitiful. It doesn't even come close to Little Red Riding Hood's. If we were to compare them, the wolf would die of starvation after eating Red Riding Hood's grandma if Mirai were the one bringing the bread. Okay, she's super slow. If we're talking about basic acts now, we can take a look at how she will appear in the battle. She has 3 2 APs, and they're all pretty interesting. She has Ballad, which has a chance at sleep. Rock and Roll, which is the same thing, medium damage to the front 3 enemies, but gives her a chance to stun. So depending on the situation, you can use her for either ones, making her a pretty good brawler. Her Song of Brilliance is low brilliance recovery to allies. It's 15 brilliance at max, which isn't 20, which is the typical gust of brilliance, but since it's only 2 AP, that's actually pretty good for what you're putting out there. Now, ironically, despite all of her basic acts being 2 AP, her Climax act is 3 AP. And this is the real sticking point with Mirai. She does high damage, it's decently high damage, and a high chance to stop. We don't know what that is, but it's probably greater than, or somewhere around 2/3 or greater than that. So once she goes in a turn, she has a very high likelihood of stopping 3 or more girls on the opposite team. So that's pretty impressive. Her unit skill is just a head scratcher. She's a mid-row girl, like I mentioned earlier, but when there are 2 or more stage girls in the back row, that's when her unit skill kicks in, and it's a selfish, old school type of unit skill where, you know, if it's leveled up, she gets 30% act power, 30% critical. No one's going to be using her for her unit skill. I can safely say that. For her auto skills, she also has 4 times the chance to get a critical hit as a typical stage girl. Her damage received is reduced by quite a bit, making her Dream, her element Dream, not quite as awful as before. It's still significant. 35% more damage than normal to her, no matter what. And her final auto skill is very interesting. It's an exit evasion for 4 turns. If you don't remember what that is, Thumbelina did it. It's where if they are forced to exit, we might colloquially call it killed. When they are killed, she comes back with 50% HP and full brilliance bar for 2 turns. So pretty good. However, when we start talking about how she fits, well, there's Zeus, there's Momotaro, there's Jekyll. Every team is geared up to be, at least the high levels, to deal with girls like Marie and Dorothy, so much so that they're not even typically anyway, unless you build around them, viable. They're typically not viable because of so much cleanse. So by the time this is actually available to use, it's probably not going to be there anymore. Not because 4 turns have gone, but because of some form of cleanse. But it could see some utility. It's just not something you're going to see come up as a relevant feature for Mirai. Like I said, the real sticking point when it comes to her is her Climax Act. 3 AP really requires that you have some sort of AP down to use her. Okay, there are a number of problems with it being 3 AP, and thank goodness it is, because if it were 2 AP, it would be stupid. Okay, but because it's 3 AP, it doesn't matter about her agility. Even if she's super fast, even if her opponent's slowed, she can be aggroed. She can also be hit with a counter heal very, very easily. She prevents you from using more than 2 Climax Acts that turn, again, without AP down. There's really no reason to run Rapunzel the same turn, because that would cleanse all the stuff anyway. So that makes her a lot less effective as far as how she would fit into a team synergy, which is unfortunate because she is a cool card, but her mid-row and her mid-row status makes her a really interesting card because she gets all the benefits of mid-buff and mid-offense. So she can still be scary, but compared to the type of girls that are coming out right now, she's not as scary. I would be more scared of seeing Dorothy in a 2 or 3 girl team than I would be seeing Miku-like in a 5 girl team. I would be more scared of Red Riding Hood because of her capability of, with her unit skill, to make teams stronger. And her invincibility is kind of cool too. You can watch that video about that. I would be more scared of Jekyll because Jekyll post final act is disgusting and could possibly outduel Miku-like despite all her cool, actually probably would outduel Miku-like with her act change. So there are just better girls to spend your gems on to get to the question of should you pull. There's a free first 10 times pull. I already did it. I got nothing, but I know people who did get her in that first pull. Go for it. It's free. There's really no reason not to. The rest of it, you can get premiums with that gotcha. So it is like a birthday banner. So if you're looking for that DL dupe and you don't know how, or you don't care how or what, you just need a banner, yeah, go for it. Drive yourself crazy on this one. But this banner, for the girl that has a rate up, I would pass on it, besides the first step. When I'm running Mirai, I would probably stick some sort of brilliance plus fortitude on her. So there would be yeah. So I was just double checking her auto skills. This is just a one take catching everything. So sorry for the delay there. But yeah, I would put fortitude on her again because you can't really count on the exit evasion. It's probably going to be cleared because you can't ban Momotaro. You probably can't or won't ban Zeus. You can ban and should ban Jekyll. But again, that exit evasion probably isn't going to keep her alive. So not having fortitude is kind of a big deal if you're planning on running her in your team. But again, I probably wouldn't run her in my team because she just gets in the way. Even though she's super cool, she probably has great use in SS and S and lower ranks just because she could be seen as very scary. Obviously, her stop is pretty disgusting. But when you see her, how do you play around her? Well, again, like I was hinting at before, you need to probably bring some aggro. Most of the top players are kind of setting Puck aside. With Miku-like, I'll be interested to see if there's any attempt to kind of cheese that by using her, because she is actually kind of difficult to kill given her reduced damage received, her high HP, and her being mid-row. That, if you get one significantly high mid buffer, mid bulk, she becomes very difficult to take out. And by using her Climax act in that one turn, it can wreak some havoc. But you are, as I said, kind of throwing your own team into a difficult situation where they can only afford to do one other Climax act that turn. So there are probably some big brain strats concerning her, but they are big brain strats for people who have specific girls. As far as what you're concerned with, aggro her, counter heal, just prepare to be stopped. Don't anticipate, try to play around her just like you would play around the typical counter heal. Especially if you're using Red Riding Hood, you're probably really experienced with this. Just try to vomit all your climaxes on a turn where she would not be used. So if there would be a particular turn where you would be more likely to be using your climaxes on that turn, maybe a good idea to try to surprise your opponent by only using one climax and maybe a gust that turn, just to prevent having all your climaxes stopped, so you can reserve them for a time when she's not going, when your opponent would be less suspicious of you doing so. If you have any questions about her or about the banner, you can go ahead and leave them in the comments below. This really concludes it. As far as should you ban, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Should you ban? She's a tier 5 ban just above Genie Casa. Genie Casa at this point is really just an annoyance, not really someone to be feared. Mikuhiro is that same kind of girl in tier 5, where there are so many girls ahead that I would rarely expect to see them banned. But if they're of the top 2 girls, yeah, she's definitely worth a ban just so you don't get cheesed on. This concludes the video. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your polls. Good luck in your reviews. I will see you later.